Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a pretty popular reading challenge that has been going around BookTube lately, and that is replacing my screen time with reading. Now, in case you didn't know, your phone actually keeps track of how much time you spend on it every single day, and you can go in and you can check it out. It breaks down all sorts of different components to it, from which app you're spending the most time on to what time of day you're spending the most time on your phone. And since I have that information, that means that I can take the amount of time that I have spent on my phone and use that to determine how much I am going to read every single day. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, at least I think so. So looking here on my information, my demographics, my data, it shows that last Saturday, I was only on my phone for an hour and 27 minutes, which makes sense. I was super busy all last Saturday. Last Saturday was our big St. Patrick's Day weekend in which I was going around and dancing all sorts of different places. So that means today I am only gonna have to read it for an hour and a half. The next few days coming up are going to be a lot heavier. I've looked forward at the data and some days are gonna be really long, but today is gonna be pretty easy. So let's talk about what we are reading. I am currently in the process of reading a couple of things. First off, I am making my way through Great Irish Tales of Horror. I've only read the first one in this so far, and I'm kind of doing the thing where I'm only reading like one story a day, so I'm not dedicating like a lot of time to this one. And then I am also reading Daughter of No One by Sam Liedel. I've only started the prologue so far, so I've only gotten like 5 pages into it, so I can't really tell you anything about it so far, but hopefully in an hour and a half I'll be able to give you some thoughts on it. So let's start with our reading. My friend is staying with me for the next few days because she had a gas leak at her apartment and she's still sleeping. So we're gonna quietly check in about the reading that I did yesterday. I read a couple of stories from Great Irish Tales of Horror. They're okay. I did like this one about a little boy who spent all of his time in a graveyard and kind of like developed this relationship with this one child's grave and then became like so depressed when they dug up this child and like reburied him somewhere else that he ended up dying and getting put in that grave. That was nice. Other ones I'm not really into. I'm not into like classic horror or classic short stories because it always seems to me like there is so much buildup and so much setup for very little payoff, and a lot of the times I'll end up thinking like, this is what people found scary back then? Like, are you kidding me? Really? They all just seem really long and convoluted and drawn out for no reason, and it's very difficult for me to enjoy like classic old-timey horror because I guess I'm just too desensitized to stuff. I don't know. I tried to read Daughter of No One, but I only got 40 pages into it before I ended up DNFing because this book does the number one thing that I hate in books, which is when what the author is telling us and what the author is showing us is two completely different things. There are so many times in books in which the author wants to make the main character like a loner. They wanted them to be like on the outcast of society, the fringes of society. They want them to be an outcast, but they won't actually put in any work into making that. They will say that the main character is an outcast and they will say that society doesn't treat them right, But then when the main character is actually interacting with people, everyone will treat them normally and just be nice to them and stuff. So like the author will say these things to establish the world, but then never show anything to back it up. And it just feels like such lazy writing to me. If you were going to make a character live in a world where there is some type of racism or prejudice or something, then you need to also have characters that hold that racism and prejudice. It means nothing when the characters are being treated just like everybody else. And it is so boring to be told all sorts of things and then never see it. We are told that the main character's stepdad is like mean and controlling, but then when she interacts with him, he's just some normal dude. I hate it. I can't do it. There's so many books in which that happens nowadays, and I keep on being like, did you not even read your own story to know what is going on? Did you not think about your own lore when you were creating this world? I don't know. So I can't do it. DNFing.
Hello, Editing Spencer here. I'm going back through this and I feel like I didn't properly explain what exactly Daughter of No One did wrong in the not setting up the lore, because I did DNF pretty early in, and just mentioning the stepdad makes it sound like I'm being really picky when I'm not. I'm promising you there was a lot harder stuff. Mainly the fact that the book opens with these 3 hard concrete rules that the book literally says these are the 3 rules of our society. And 2 of the rules were that a woman cannot have a child outside of wedlock. And if she does have a child outside of wedlock, she will be shunned from society. And number 2 is that the child that was created out of wedlock will also be super duper shunned from society. And then it moves on to the first chapter where our main character is a child who was born out of wedlock, whose mother is getting married, and everybody is super nice to them and happy and not shunning them at all. So what was the point of setting up the fact that apparently we're supposed to hate on these children and these women who had kids out of wedlock, but in reality it's fine. We'll still marry them and still have them in our households and still treat them like everybody else. But oh, they better watch their step. This is what I mean by did you not read your own lore? Did you not write your own book? I don't understand how these things continuously happen in books.
Today, the amount of time that I need to read today, where is my phone? I don't know where it is. I looked at it earlier. I have 4 hours and 38 minutes worth of reading to do today. I already put in about an hour's worth of reading so far, and I decided to start Magic Steps by Tamora Pierce. I was very excited to pick this up because right now, there is some shit going on Twitter with J.K. Rowling, where she is very upset that the UK is passing a law making it illegal to say racist and homophobic, and just they're illegalizing hate speech, really. And she's very upset about it. And she's also trying to say that aspects of the Holocaust did not happen, and trying to be very transphobic, and thus in opposite of that, to show her support for trans people, Tamora Pierce put out a very long Twitter thread for her support of trans people and all the other people that J.K. Rowling is just absolutely shitting on. If you're somebody who's really mad that the UK is passing this law, maybe you should take some time to think about why so much of your internet presence needs to be circled around hate and hating on people and being mean to people. You really need to do an overhaul in your life if a law that says hey, we shouldn't tell people that they're worth nothing just based on arbitrary aspects of them is bad. Maybe reevaluate your life. Don't do that. Let's talk about this actual book though. It is called Magic Steps. It is the first in a 4-book series, I believe, and it is about this Lady Sandy, who comes across this boy who has a unique magic. He does like dancing magic, where that's how he casts his spells, is through dance. And now she's going to teach him how to use his magic, because he isn't really like aware of the fact that he's been doing magic. He just dances for fun, you know. And so she's going to teach him how to wield that magic. And also, some guy has been murdered. I'm only 90 pages into it. We haven't really learned anything about him or the murder or anything at all. I'm liking this book, but it is kind of slow, especially for how short it is. It's only 260 pages. I'm 90 pages in, so I'm about a third of the way through already. And it feels like I should know a little bit more about what's going on with the murder than what I do now. Hopefully, we'll get more into it, but right now things are going a little bit slow for me. So I have about 3.5 more hours of reading that I need to get done today, so let's get into it. Good morning. It is the next day already. I didn't end up checking in again yesterday because I can't vlog in front of other people. It just makes me feel so cringe. And so I tried and I just couldn't do it. So I decided to just wait to today and we could talk about what I read yesterday. So in the 4.5 hours that I read yesterday, I was able to finish Magic Steps by Tamora Pierce, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. I thought it was pretty interesting, but it was also a little bit slow and very basic. I think that this is a companion series to a series that happened before this, and I'm kind of interested in reading it. They reference like the main character in this, Sandri, whatever her name is, references like a bunch of things that she used to do and like all these adventures that she used to have with her friends. One of the things that I didn't really like about this book is the fact that the main characters are supposed to be 12 and 14, and they absolutely do not feel 12 and 14. They feel much older than that, and I don't know why we just didn't have these characters be more like in the 16, 17-year-old range. Like, I don't know if maybe Tamora Pierce felt like if she made them older, then that would mean that she would have to add in some sort of like romantic element, but like you don't. Just because there's a male and female main character, that doesn't mean that there has to be like any sort of romance whatsoever. Like, they can just be 17-year-olds who are friends and doing all of the same stuff, and everything would make way more sense because like these characters were way too like mature and handled every situation way better than any 12-year-old who finds a person like completely dismembered and like their blood everywhere. Handled it way too maturely than what I feel a real 12-year-old would. And then after I finished that, I read the first volume of Perfect World by Ray Aruga. When I first picked this up and I was going into it, I was a little bit hesitant because this is a romance between a able-bodied woman and a man who has a spinal cord injury. So I thought like, oh, this could be one of those kind of like cutesy, infantilizing disability type books, and we could easily just like ignore all of the hardships that comes with being in a chair. But no, absolutely not. That is not what this book does. This book goes hardcore, steering into how and why it is so difficult to be in a chair and acquire a spinal cord injury, and a lot of like the medical things that go along with it. The basis for this is that they used to be friends in high school, and when they went to college they kind of fell out of touch, and that was when he got his spinal cord injury, and now they're reconnecting, and now she's getting to know him as somebody who also has this like extra layer to him. Now he has to also deal with this disability, and he is a architect who is constantly trying to design disabled friendly architecture, but because Japan does not have any disability laws, or I don't know if they have any, they don't really have the same type of disability laws that they do here in America. In America, you legally need to make everything wheelchair accessible and make it so that there is enough room for wheelchairs to get by. And you need to provide all of these things for people who are visually disabled or auditorily disabled. In Japan, that's not a thing. There are no requirements for disabled people and to make things accessible for them in any way. So he, as an architect, is continuously trying to design disability-friendly architecture, and everybody else is like, no, I don't want that. I don't care if you want a ramp. We never have disabled people come into our store, so why would I put a ramp in? Completely ignoring the fact that the reason why disabled people don't come into the store is because they can't get into the store because there's currently no ramp. And he also talks about things like, yeah, I would like to date, but that's not something that is in the wheelhouse for me anymore, because like I do things like now I just shit my pants all of the time. I can't feel anything below my waist, and thus I can't control anything that's going on, and I shit myself in public frequently. That is super unsexy. I'm not going to expect anybody to want to be a part of that, and I don't expect there to ever be like a type of relationship, and I don't want to like rely on other people like that and stuff, and it's just so good and so realistic, and I am so into it. There are 12 books in this series apparently, and I am so excited to get through the next 11. All right, what are we doing for today? The amount of reading that I need to do today is exactly 5 hours, so I got quite a bit to do today. I have quite a few chores that I want to get done, and I also have some embroidery that I want to work on, so I feel like I'm going to be doing a lot of audiobook today. And the audiobook that I'm currently listening to is Sharpe's Tiger by Bernard Cornwell. This is a historical fiction. It takes place in 1799 and is about our main character, Dick Sharpe. And he is fighting in India for the British Army, except he super doesn't want to. He does not want to do that. He wants to desert. But unfortunately, he gets caught up in this situation where he like beats up an officer for insulting the girl that he likes, and thus he gets like 2,000 lashes, which obviously is going to kill him. Nobody can survive 2,000 lashes. So he gets through like quite a few, and then they end up cutting him down and being like, look, Sharpe, we need somebody who is going to be a spy for us and is going to like pretend to be a deserter and go over on the enemy side, and really they'll be a spy. So if we let you live, then you have to go and do spy stuff for us. So that's what he's doing now, is he is just pretended to desert even though he really wanted to desert, and now he has to figure something out. Obviously, I'm a third of the way through it. I am surprisingly liking this a lot more than I originally thought that I would, than I anticipated, and I'm glad that I am. It's always good to enjoy things more than you expected. Tuesday. I don't really know what happened yesterday. The day kind of just got away from me. I was able to read for an hour and a half, but that means that I have 3.5 hours that I didn't do my reading for, so I am going to roll over those hours into today. I only have an hour and a half worth of screen time for today, so that means that together it's gonna be 5 hours again. So we're gonna try reading for 5 hours part 2. And like I said yesterday, I did do a little bit of reading in hours and a half. So I did get halfway through Sharpe's Tiger, and I did start the first chapter of The G-String Murders by Gypsy Rose Lee. This is a book that was published in like 1940. And the main character is a stripper who one of her coworkers gets strangled with a G-string. I'm very interested in that. The first chapter was pretty good, and I think it's just fun seeing this side of the 1930s, 40s, the
1940s. The first printing was September in 1942. I think that this is an interesting look into an aspect of life of the 40s that we usually don't look at. We usually think that everybody who was living in the 40s was like super uptight and nobody ever did anything sexual and everybody was just like this goody-goody and stuff like that, when in reality, like, that's not true. Like, clearly strippers and sex work and all sorts of stuff have been around since literally the beginning of time. And so it's nice and interesting to be reading this, especially because it's written by somebody who is actually living in that time as opposed to somebody today who's just making stuff up about 100 years ago. But yeah, so we got another 5 hours worth of reading to do today, so let's get into it. Quite a lot of updates for you. Obviously, first off, I got my hair dyed. My sister is getting married in about 2 weeks, and so I wanted to make my hair a more natural color because this is supposed to be like a black tie event. She's making it very fancy, and so I wanted it to look nice when we do like the pictures and stuff like that. After I went and got my hair dyed, I went to the library so then I could pick up some books that I had on hold, and I accidentally tripped and ended up checking out like 14 books. So I have a whole stack of them down here that I will share with you right now, and then we'll talk about what I've been reading. The first book that I picked up is The Essential Dykes to Watch Out For by Alison Bechdel. You might be familiar with this name because this is actually the person who came up with the Bechdel test. You know, that famous test about women talking about something other than men in media and movies. My favorite part about this is that on the spine, it's just labeled as dykes and that's it. Next up, we have Habibi by Craig Thompson. Heartstopper volumes 2 through 4. I technically haven't started this series yet, but I own the first one, and I know that when I read it, I'm probably going to get super into it and want to read all of them at once, so I made sure to get all of them at the library so I could just binge the entire thing. Hockey Girl Loves Drama Boy by Faith Erin Hicks. A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. This actually is one of the books that I want to read for this year. It was on my list of 24 books that I want to read in 2024, so that's why I got this one. How to Be Ace by Rebecca Burgess. My Wandering Warrior Existence. My Pancreas Broke But My Life Got Better. And My Alcoholic Escape from Reality. All 3 of these by Nagata Kabi. These 3 I did already have on my TBR, which is why I grabbed them. Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe. I also have this one on my TBR. At 30, I realized I have no gender by Sho Arai. And last off, Why I Adopted My Husband by Yuta Yagi. So yeah, I have a huge pile of things that I need to get through pretty soon. Wow, it's a great thing that I'm dedicating all of my time to reading right now. When it comes to what I am actually reading. First, when I was getting my hair done, I had forgotten to bring any sort of book, and I needed to sit and let like the dye just sit in my hair for at least 30 minutes. So I ended up getting the ebook version of Things Have Gotten Worse since we last spoke, and I read the first 20% of it on Libby, and I honestly ended up DNFing it. It's just 20 minutes into it, just sitting there, I couldn't even do it. This is a very short book. It's only like 112 pages, and it was so bad that I couldn't even get myself to get through the 112 pages. I was really confused because I've heard a lot of people talk about this book and say that it was really good, and yet at basically the first line, I was like, ooh, this is not going to be good. This book, for some reason, I don't know anything about the author, but the book feels as though it was written by a straight woman who has little to no interaction with the queer community, because the book like starts out with this posting on a queer website called like Queer List or something like that, and it starts off with being like, I don't even know if I should put this on here because I know so many of us are offended by even the mention of the word fruit. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, and then as it continues on, there continues to be things that I'm like, I genuinely don't believe this. She posted this ad about wanting to sell this apple peeler on this queer website. And then like later she talks about how like, oh, this person who emailed me is the only person who didn't send me an email like asking me to do like sexual things and like harassing me and stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You posted this on who is harassing you? Because like usually queer women don't super harass other queer women because they're not like straight men where they're just going to be sending random messages to anybody being like, hey, send me a titty pic, or just like sending out dick pics and stuff. Like, so I don't really see her getting floods of emails from lesbians or bi women harassing her, which means like, are the gay men I also don't see that. Like maybe I could see maybe she's gotten one email where they ask like something out of, but to say like, oh, all of the responses that I've gotten on here have just been for like sexual things, as though this is just like regular Craigslist or something, does not compute with me. And then just everything that continued happening, I was like, no, what? The main character is selling this apple peeler because she like needs money, and ends up telling the person who messaged her like, oh yeah, like my family, they don't accept me. And when I came out to my mom, she told me I don't have a daughter anymore, and then she hung up on me. And the person who's emailing her feels so bad that she's like, you know what, you don't even need to sell me the apple peeler anymore. I'm just gonna give you $1,000 because that's the saddest story I've ever heard, which it's not, because that's literally every queer person's story in the early 2000s. This book takes place in 2000. Every single queer person was not being accepted by their family. So I don't know why this random person who you met on the internet had such a sad story that you need to randomly give them $1,000. And then there's like this whole scene where a girl like puts on a red dress for the first time and then gets sent home from work because she's wearing a red dress. It's not like the dress was inappropriate or like cut poorly or anything. It's just red, and she gets sent home for that. Everything that was happening in the book, I was just like, what? No, I can't do this. And I ended up clearly DNFing it. I'm sounding like such a hater in this video, I feel like. I also decided to DNF Great Irish Tales of Horror because I've read like 7 or 8 of these now, and I only enjoyed one of them. And so if a majority of them I'm just not having a good time with, like I'm not gonna push myself to keep reading these stories. Like they are all written by different authors, so I was hoping that it was just, you know, like a one-off thing, you know, I'd come across like somebody else who I did like their, but the majority of these stories I'm just not having a good time with, and thus I'm not gonna push myself through another like 230 pages worth of stories that I'm not into, not scared about, and don't really care about. Sharp's Tiger, I am about 2/3 of the way through it so far. I don't really have like a lot to say. There's a lot of battle scenes in here, and that's kind of like the majority of this book, but I do like the plot stuff that's going on in between, because it does seem as though the author is very aware of like women's issues and like racial issues that were going on at the time, and he like really brings up like all these different factors that are happening. And it just seems like the author like really did his research and really knows a lot about the subject that is being talked about in this book. And I'm about 80 pages into the G-string murders, and so far it's pretty good, pretty interesting. There are several things that are happening that I would not expect. For example, there's this kind of thing going on where all of the girls at the burlesque club like want to get a new toilet because for some reason theirs is broken, and some guy ends up hooking them up with a wholesale toilet, so it only costs them like $4 to buy this brandy new toilet, and they're so happy about it until the guy says, oh, and I was also able to get you guys a plumber super cheap because he's a non-union guy. And then all the dancers have a meltdown and they're like, absolutely not, how dare you say that, unions are so important, I don't care if it's gonna cost us more money, we are only going to hire a union plumber, we will not work with a scab, like how dare you even say that? And I was just like, yes, go off about unions in the 40s, especially sex worker burlesque dancer unions, hell yes. And most recently we have been introduced to a character who has just shown up, and she is like, hello, I am a Russian princess who has come across from Russia, we have had the revolution and because of that I have had to escape, and I used to dance for all sorts of royalty, but now I am here dancing in this shitty club, and oh, I cannot be in this dressing room with all of you other people. I am now realizing that I'm doing a French accent instead of a Russian one. But yeah, this woman shows up, she says that she is a famous Russian dancer who is now going to be working at the club, and she can't even like exist in the same dressing room as these like plebeian other female dancers. And so the main character is like, wait a minute, don't I know you? And the woman's like, no, I've never been to these places that you're saying that we've danced at together. But the main character is being like, no, I'm pretty sure that I know you, and not a fake Russian accent and a makeup will fool me. And I'm pretty sure that the reveal is going to be that this fake Russian woman is actually a trans woman that the main character knows from like before she transitioned. So that could go either way, because like I said, we've had pro-union stuff, which is good, but we've also like not shown women who are enemies of the main character in the best light. Our main character got arrested at one point, and she's constantly talking about like how big and meaty the hands of the policewoman who arrested her are, and the female judge the woman judge who ended up like sending them to jail is described as having like this big, huge, hairy mole. So I don't know, it's a little iffy, we're gonna have to see where it goes, but I'm excited to see what happens either way, because like I said, this was published in the 40s, so I'm very interested in all of the conversations that are happening here. Alright, that's kind of it. This has been a long check-in. I still have another like 2.5 hours to read for today, so gonna get to that. Hello and welcome to the last day of this vlog. I was able to get most of my reading done except for like an hour's worth because I had somewhere that I needed to go last night, so I will be rolling that hour over into today's reading. And for today I only have an hour and 27 minutes worth of reading to do, which means obviously a total of 2 hours and 27 minutes. I don't have much of an update for you guys except for the fact that I did read and finish My Alcoholic Escape from Reality by Nagata Kabi, and I gave this book 5 stars. I really like all of the things that she ends up putting out, all of the autobiographical things. I relate to so many aspects of this, even though I am not somebody who is struggling with alcoholism or pancreatitis. There were several things that were brought up in this that kind of made me reconsider my own personal, mental, and physical health and well-being, and that I should probably be making a lot more of an effort for those things than I currently have been. And maybe I'm in a little bit worse of a place than I fully realized before reading this. I'm excited to get to her other 2 books that I got and see what other personal revelations I might make when reading those. But yeah, that's kind of it. Let me do my 2.5 hours of reading, and then I will come back and check in with you guys. Alright, so I have finally finished all of my reading time. I actually read for longer than what I was supposed to because I just really wanted to finish these 2 books for the end of this vlog. So I did finish Sharp's Tiger, and I will be giving this book 4 stars. I actually found it to be a lot more interesting and compelling than I thought. The characters were pretty deep and very well fleshed out, and the author talked about so many different aspects of things that were going on. I actually own quite a few of the next books in the series, so I'm definitely going to be continuing on with this. I'm really glad that I ended up liking this because I bought like 10 of the books because I saw them at a thrift store, and for some reason I was just so compelled. And then I also finished the G-String Murders, and I'm gonna be giving this book 3 stars. I really enjoyed it up until the very end, because the end reveal of who the murderer was so convoluted, and the author kept on doing the thing where it was like, oh, this is the murderer, just kidding, actually this is the murderer, actually, haha, tricked ya, this other person is the murderer. I also was incorrect in my guess that the new burlesque dancer was going to be a trans woman. She just ended up being a boring old cis lady who the main character just happened to know from previous shows. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the vlog. If you have gotten here, thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. But besides that, make sure to stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.